Do you want to get your way more often? Then use the power of because. Welcome to Booktail Learning Magnified, where you can get the best summaries for business books. Go to www.booktales.org. And today I'm going to relay a lesson, what I'm calling a book bite, from the book The Art of Woo, Using Strategic Persuasion to Sell Your Ideas, by the Wharton professor G. Richard Shell and his partner Mario Mosa. Now, this simple little technique is something, it's very traditional, it's very, when you hear it, you're going to say, oh, of course it makes sense, but sometimes we forget, to actually apply these types of things to our everyday life. So this is not something that will necessarily revolutionize persuasion in your life, but it's going to help you get a little bit more of your way if you just conscientiously apply it more often. I'm going to share with you some of the evidence for why this works and maybe help you, persuade you to use it a little bit more often. Now, when we think about persuasion, of getting other people to do what you want or to accept your ideas, whatever that happens to be, there are really two fundamental ways that are traditional ways that have never changed and never will change about how to persuade people. The first way is to simply offer solid reasons to accept your ideas. Just simply offer solid reasons. And number two is to back those reasons up with evidence. So you should do this because, of X, Y, and Z reason. And now they sound like pretty simple, simple methods, and it is, but obviously how much you can apply this or how deep you have to go with the reason and the evidence and how much evidence you have to include or how much proof, that's going to change from circumstance to circumstance. And that's part of the art of woo, is knowing what to do. But I will simply wanted to do this book bite to help you one technique to get a little bit more, get people to do a little bit more of what you want. Simple as something like getting you a glass of water from a friend or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or, cutting in line if you're in a rush, and better techniques to get your way in this type of situation. Now, the professor here quotes a study. Now, this is a study done a long time ago at Harvard. And what they did was you have to set up the context here. I think of the context. This was at a time, I think in the 80s or so, or the 90s, when there was, maybe one or two photocopies in the library, and that was it. So this is the Harvard Business Library. And so it wasn't like today where everyone had their phone could practically print out something. It's not like that. There's like one photocopy, so if you needed it, sometimes a line would form. So to test out this one technique, a psychologist set their assistant to go try to cut in line. And the assistant was given 5 lines, 5 different things to say for each time they tried to cut. So they would wait for the line to form. The assistant would approach the front of the line and say one of these lines to see if it would work. And then they'd come back later when a new line formed and they'd do it, and they did it over and over and over again for weeks and weeks. And they tabulated, what the success ratio is. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the 5 lines. And each time I want you, and this is something Richard Shell does, but I want you to actually put your guess for what you think the success ratio. How many people, or what percentage of people, let this random stranger cut to the front of the line to make copies? That's what you want to do. So I'll kind of write it in the YouTube video here as well, like what the line is, but I'll read it to you here. Okay, so the person walks up to go to the photocopy. There's a big long line. They go up to the very front and they say, first, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? Okay, so write down what you think the success ratio for that. Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? Okay, number 2. Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush? Because I am in a rush. What do you think the success ratio of that one was? Number 3. Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I have to make copies? Did you catch that? Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I have to make copies. Next one, number 4. Excuse me, I have 20 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? Excuse me, I have 20 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? What do you think the success ratio on that one was? And the last one, excuse me, I have 20 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I am in a rush? What do you think the success ratio of that was? Okay, so now that you have all of them, where do you think the success ratios are on those? You can rate them again now, change if you want to, and I'm going to give you the actual answers to these, and that the psychologist found. And I hope that there's a very revealing thing about what human beings, how they react. And I think there's, it's a lot of hope in that we do react to reason and evidence, and at least to some degree, even if it's surface level, we at least still respond to something like this. I actually see this as a positive. So, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? The success ratio was 60%. So 60% of the time, the person went to the front of the line, and when they said this to the person, and they did this hundreds of times. So, the next one, number 2. Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I am in a rush? Because I am in a rush. 94% of the time. Simply by saying, because I'm in a rush, because you have a reason, and you give the reason, I'm in a rush. 94% of the people responded to that. So almost everybody except that one jerk once in a while was like, no, I don't care. Or maybe he was in a rush too. He's like, well, I'm in a rush. I don't want you to go. But still, it's like most people are saying, okay, you have a reason. I can sympathize. Go ahead. Number 3, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I have to make copies? Now, the purpose of this is to show that this is a nonsensical reason that was giving. They were isolating the fact that the because was really a big standard for people accepting it. 50% of the time, people said yes to a nonsensical thing like, yeah, I have to make copies. That's the reason. Okay, so they're redundantly saying they have to make copies. I have to make 5 copies. May I use the Xerox machine because I have to make copies, not because I'm in a rush. Number 4, excuse me, I have 20 pages. So from 5 to 20, big difference. May I use the Xerox machine? The success ratio was 10. And, it kind of shows you if you want to ask for something, you're more likely going to get something very small, or if you ask for something very small. So if you say, excuse me, can you have my baby to a stranger? It's probably not going to work. But if you say, excuse me, you want to go on a date? That's probably a better approach. Step by step, work up to that procedure. I don't know why I called it a procedure. But excuse me, I have 20 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush? Guess what? Did not change from the other because. 50% of the time. Even though it was 20 pages, the mere fact that they said because and they gave a legitimate reason, they got 50% of the time. This is 20 pages, remember. So the whole point of this is to kind of show that what you want to, when you're asking for something, remember the power of because. When you're asking someone to get you a glass of water, some milk, or coffee, whatever, or someone to get you even food, whatever it is, or to cut in line, or when you're giving a big presentation, you still want to remember the power of because, that it does resonate with people. And so when you use because, you will become more persuasive. So use the word because so that, or because you'll become more persuasive. Have a great day.